Hello everyone, today we are going to discuss about the Battle of Blenheim, also popularly known as After Blenheim by Robert Southey. The Battle of Blenheim or After Blenheim depicts the hollowness and the futility of the war. The poet himself is against the Battle of Blenheim, which was fought in 1704, and interestingly this poem is presented from a layman's perspective. Okay, just a minute. Yes. This poem is set at the site of that battle. The battle I may mean the Battle of Blenheim, which is the anglicized name for the German village of Blenheim, situated on the left bank of the Danube River in the state of Bavaria in southern Germany. This poem, you will notice, interestingly starts with the queries of two little children who had found a skull which they found in the garden while they were playing and near their cottage, and they are surprised and curious. They approach their grandfather, who is named here as Caspar, and they ask him about it. So most of the time you will find that Caspar here is the main speaker, as they are the listening. The others, that is his grandchildren, Wilhelmine or Wilhelmine, whichever way you want to pronounce it, and Peterkin are listening to them. So let's start. It was a summer evening. Old Caspar's work was done, and he before his cottage door was sitting in the sun, and by him, spotted on the green, his little grandchild Wilhelmine. So it was a summer evening. The calm and the pastoral ambience is created by the poet, and we do not miss that. So old Caspar's, since he was old, he was sitting there, his work was done before his cottage door, he was sitting and relaxing himself, was sitting in the sun. This is a usage of the metonymy. Metonymy means it's a figure of speech when a larger thing is described in case of with the help of a smaller perspective. So, and by him, spotted on the green pastures, his little grandchild Wilhelmine. So as he was sitting, he spotted on the green pastures his grandchild Wilhelmine. She saw her brother Peterkin rolling something large and round, which he beside the rivulet in playing there had found. He came to ask what he had found that was so large and smooth and round. So Wilhelmine, as they were playing, Peterkin and Wilhelmine as they were playing, Wilhelmine saw that her brother Peterkin was rolling something large and round in his hand. So as he was rolling, he was coming along the cottage door as he was rolling that thing in his hand, and he said that while playing there he found that. He's now coming here towards the cottage to his grandfather to ask all about it. So here in these two lines, which he beside the rivulet in playing there had found, you see there is an usage of a figure of speech which is something that is new to you. It is called hyperbaton. It is an inversion in the order of the words meant for emphasis, which you will see here. In playing there had found, not arranged in proper order, but it is used specifically to highlight or to emphasize. Now what is that thing? And that is something we will find out, which surprises, not only surprises us but shocks us beyond word. So let's move on to the following lines. Old Caspar took it from the boy, who stood expectant by, and then the old man shook his head, and with a natural sigh, "'Tis some poor fellow's skull," said he, "who fell in the great victory." So old Caspar, the old grandfather, took that round thing from the boy, and the boy, means Peterkin, was very curious about it. He was standing by it expectant, and he shook his head, he nodded his head in some kind of you know that, what is it, a kind of dissatisfaction, you can tell, and with a natural sigh, and this sigh leaves us wondering that what is this all about. Does that memory of the battle cause him pain or some kind of happiness that reminds them of the great victory? So now he continues to tell. So for the first time in the poem, Caspar refers to the battle of Blenheim. 'Tis some poor fellow's skull who was defeated in that great victory. Which victory? In the victory that they had achieved in the battle of Blenheim. So there is irony in these words, great victory. It may firstly hint at Caspar's ironic tone, which we can say the poet's ironic tone, and as a commoner it may be that he is proud of the war. If you see my previous video on John Brown, you will see that how war is something very glorious, something to be celebrated for a layman. You will see in the case of John Brown's mother, who is very proud of her son going to the war. So something of that sort is also found here. I find them in the garden, for there may many hear about, and often when I go to the plowshare turns them out. For many thousand men, said he, were slain in that great victory. So the grandfather is telling that I find them in the garden, for there is many about. While I am working in the garden and while I am plowing, along with that plowshare, as the soil gets rolled, as the earth turns upside down, many of these skulls come to the surface. So similar skulls are dug out from under the ground, and many thousand men, this is an example or of the usage of hyperbole. For thousand men means many men, an expression which is used to heighten the brutality of the war, were slain in the great victory. Again, the irony is hinted here. So the senseless killing is abhorred by the poet, and he rejects this kind of hollow nationalism, a nationalism that allows you to take the life of people senselessly. That is not nationalism at all. It does not have any value, it does not have any ideal. Getting my point? Okay. Now he is telling, now tell us what it was all about. Young Peterkin, he cries, and little Wilhelmine looks up with wonder-waiting eyes. Now tell us all about the war and what they fought each other for. So the children were curious to know about it, and this is expressed in these lines. Now tell us what it was all about. So as if they were trying to listen to some story, something great was about to happen, and we understand that they are unaware of the brutalities of the war and what exactly happens in the war. The immense bloodshed, the loss of lives is something that is not known to them, and so they are very curious to know, and both of them are staring at them eagerly, staring at him eagerly. So here you will see, with wonder awaiting eyes, now tell us all about the war and what they fought each other for. You will see that the poet reflects upon the eagerness with this regard to war at such a young age. This is something also we cannot ignore, though you may feel that towards the end when we read it, you may feel that there is something different from the expression that I'm using here, the eagerness of the war among these two kids at such a young age. But at first you cannot totally ignore the fact that they are curious to know. It is something that is glorious, and children are naturally attracted to these things. So this was something that the poet wanted his readers to note as an undertone. Okay. It was the English, Caspar cried, who put the French to rout. But what they fought each other for, I could not well make out. But everybody said, quoth he, that was a famous victory. So Caspar continues to tell that it was the English who put the French to rout. He's telling that we get the information from the history books. That is what his source of information is. That in the history books it is told that the British defeated the French in this Franco-Bavarian war. In this Franco-Bavarian and the Franco-Bavarian army in the Battle of Blenheim. So this is what the history books tell, that the British emerged victorious. But what they fought each other for, I could not well make out. Neither did old Caspar try to find out the reason for the war, nor was the reason of the war known to them. Just like at present there is a war going on, if you follow the news, between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So what is that war about? This war, what is this warmongering all about? This senseless killing of thousands and thousands of people with loss of life, property, and probably we are on the verge of the Third World War. So this is something, and so numerous battles have been won, which puts the existence of humanity on question, their intelligence on question. And this mindlessness is something that at no matter at which age, whatever amount, or at whichever degree war is being fought, we cannot ignore that. But everybody said, quoth he, that it was a famous victory. So he is telling that everyone quoted that it was a famous victory. It was a very famous victory for the Britishers. Now he is telling the details of the war. My father lived at Blenheim then, yon little stream hand by. They burnt his dwelling to the ground, and he was forced to fly. So with his wife and child he fled, nor had he where to rest his head. So old Caspar recollects from the past and talks about his father, who said, whom he is telling that had fled from Blenheim because his living place, his house, was burnt to the ground by the army, the enemies, and as a result he was forced to run away or migrate from that place. And whom did he take along with him while he fled the place? He took along with him his wife and child, nor had he where to rest his head. So the situation was so precarious, so terrible, that he did not have any place to rest his head. So he migrated to different places in search of shelter, but the impending war did not allow the family to get or find a home. The image of migration, migrating of the people, this is something that Indians are very aware of, especially during this pandemic situation. And the picture that comes, that floats before your eyes, is absolutely terrible. And I'm sure if you watch the news or watch the videos or whatever you get your source of information is, I'm sure it is going to bring water to your eyes, because it is absolutely heart-wrenching. So the same condition, pathetic condition, was faced by Caspar's father also. Okay. With fire and sword the country round was wasted far and wide, and many a childing mother then and newborn baby died. But things like that, must be at every famous victory. So, with fire and sword, he is continuing to tell that we get a hint of man's cruelty. So, they did not leave any option of destruction in their hands, means they did not stop at anything. Whatever options they had in their hands, they used it to destroy, as if there was some amount of glory, some amount of fun associated with that. Was wasted far and wide. So no matter whichever side you looked in that battle of Blenheim, everywhere there was destruction, and many a childing mother then and newborn baby died. They did not care for the pregnant women, nor did they care for the newborn child. Only thing that mattered to them was war and the victory in the war, because for them, as you see in the following two lines, that a famous victory, a great victory, was more important. Warmongering was more important than taking care of pregnant women and newborn child. As a result, what happened? Many women died giving birth to their children. Many newborn kids died because they were not properly taken care of. There was no proper aid. So for them, paying more attention to the wounded soldiers was more important than giving care to pregnant mothers and newborn kids, because that could wait. They say it was a shocking sight after the field was won, for many thousand bodies here lay rotting in the sun. But things like that, must be after a famous victory. So you will see that in these lines, that as old Caspar is telling famous victory, great victory, again in this stanza also you find famous victory. Yes, he is very probably, though, he is very proud of his country emerging victorious, the Britishers emerging victorious. But the ironic tone that is conveyed, the irony in the tone that is conveyed by the poet in these words, famous victory, great victory, and how a layman visualizes war, literally worships this warmongering and worships the rulers who indulge in these kinds of war, creating some sort of illusion, as you will see in the following lines. It's something beyond the knowledge and the understanding of the layman. So he continues to tell that they say it was a shocking sight. They refers to the ruling class and their hypocritical attitude, because with their hypocritical attitude only they can convey such kind of big words, big mouthed words. After the field was won means after the battle was won. Battlefield, it refers to the battlefield. For many thousand bodies lay rotting in the sun. Aftermath of the war. Naturally, in the wars are never fought clean-handed. You either there is some amount of destruction, loss of lives, property, whatever. Yes, you may tell that there is no loss of life in case of cyber wars, but you lose your information, your security is lost, your information is lost. That is a different kind of war altogether, so let's not go into that, but it is a war. Isn't there destruction? So war means destruction. It cannot lead to any amount of peace on any side, whichever side is indulging into. You may think that this present war between Armenia and Azerbaijan involves just two countries. No, it has a large scale impact on the entire world. There are so many countries are there in the world. Indirectly or directly they are involved. Some are exactly involved in the war, some are not, but it is affecting us on a large scale. You cannot totally ignore these facts. So what is warmongering giving us? Nothing. We are fighting amongst ourselves for just probably a piece of land or whatever the reason is, and after we die, what about that? Are we taking that piece of land with us? With regard to this, I would ask all of you to read the story How Much Land Does a Man Require by Leo Tolstoy. You will understand exactly what the author is trying to convey, and I'm sure you are going to find a lot of relevance here also. But things like that, must be after a famous victory. He is telling that, oh, it is natural. Killing people, bloodshed, skulls here and there means next morning if you open your window and find a skull right outside, it is normal because there has been a war. So what if there is a skull? This is normal. Can you imagine it? Just imagine the shock you are going to receive. So you can basically correlate the situation. But Casper seems to be totally enjoying. For him, victory is most important. Great praise the Duke of Marlborough won, and our good Prince Eugene. So he is praising the Duke of Marlborough and the Prince Eugene. Why, it was a very wicked thing, said little Wilhelmine. Nay, nay, my little girl, quoth he, it was a famous victory. So again the irony in the tone is noticed. Maybe he is telling that no, how dare you call it, means addressing to Wilhelmine, he is telling, how dare you call it something wicked? How dare you did say that? It is something, a matter of great praise. So much of bloodshed was lost, so many people were lost, and we won a great victory. So how can you say that? And just see that though he is praising the dukes and the prince and whoever it is, that is the ruling class, you can imagine that being a little kid, this kind of realization has come within her after hearing this entire wicked story, that war means basically senseless killing, mindlessness, total horrific situation, chaos all around, destruction. Anything negative you can attach, that is it. There is nothing positive in it. Humanity, human being, that they are a superior race, that idea is at question. So she realizes that, Wilhelmine realizes that, and that is why she is questioning. Even though she is questioning, it does not affect Casper. He is sticking to his point that no, this is a famous victory, you cannot deny that fact. And everybody praised the Duke, who this great fight did win. But what good came of it at last, quoth little Peterkin. Why, that I cannot tell, said he, but it was a famous victory. So everybody praised the Duke, and as if we wonder, it was as if the Duke was victorious. The Duke is representative of the people. So for the victorious means the people were victorious, though he behaved totally irresponsibly. Being a representative of the ruler, representative of the people, it was his responsibility not to put his countrymen at stake and fight a war. It happened. It is the same with the case of the other country also, but no one cared. But what good came of it at last? So what was the end result of the war? People died. Yes, you became victorious. At the cost of what? At the cost of the lives of your men. At the cost of the lives of human beings. Some were innocent, some were not innocent. But whatever it was, it is just a matter of lack of understanding between two rulers that so many people had to go into war. Quoth little Peterkin, why, that I cannot tell, said he, but 'twas a famous victory. So as Peterkin and Wilhelmine both ask and question the mindlessness of the war, we see that he is sticking, Caspar is sticking to his idea that it is a famous victory. And with every repetition of the word, great victory, famous victory, a kind of ironic climax is built. Okay, so you see that the moral of the poem is that there is no real rationale for the destructive war among the human beings and the nations that should learn to get along. There is no lesson. It is only killing, destruction, and fight for power, which ultimately will lead to corruption in most of the cases. So that is where we draw our poem to a close. I hope you will understand and realize the seriousness with which Robert Southey has written this poem. This is totally an anti-war poem, as you realize this, and this ironic tone is something that you must keep in mind while writing your answers. If you have any doubts, please let me know in the comment section. I will surely clarify your doubts. And if you want to discuss anything, feel free to ask. Until the next video, bidding you goodbye. Happy learning, and please do like, share and subscribe to One Stop All Poetry Solution and help us grow. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your motivation. Happy learning.